What is good, GBO crew? It is your girl back with another video, and this is a series I've been thinking about starting for a while now, and it's called With the Fam. And as you can see today, I am joined by someone that has been rocking with me for a minute. I am so excited. We have been talking about this for a very long time. I'm joined by Dr. Quindel Jones. Okay, make sure you see the doctor. Okay, it's a PhD, baby. Okay, we are going to be discussing practicality and sensuality, and I felt like there was no one better to have this conversation with. Quinn has been a huge inspiration to me as I've been embracing my own body, learning how to embrace pleasure. So I am so excited to have her join us today. How are you, Quinn?
I'm so honored to be here. I'm feeling really, really good. I've been a major fan of yours for quite a long time. Your content creation, the things you talk about, the way you inspire others, like, I'm very honored to be here. So I'm excited.
Oh, I'm so excited too. Now, y'all, I am trying something new. Okay, so like the way I'm recording this, so like if you see me looking here, I'm looking at my camera. I'm also trying to like make eye contact with Quinn. Okay, so that's what's going on. So, practicality and sensuality. Just to give you guys a little brief overview of how I really why I want to discuss this because I was reading a book, not a bad book by any means. I definitely feel like there's an audience for that book. However, there are just some ways I feel like the conversation could have been led better. And I was like, okay, well, if I discuss this, I want to discuss it with somebody that I know has one the same background as me and who I feel like this discussion is really, going to fit. And we're centering Black women and Black growth in this conversation, but whether you're queer, whether you're trans, Black, a woman of color, this is really just about embracing and practical ways to practice our sensuality, which we will get on later towards the end. So I'm going to let Quinn start us off and talk a little bit about her upbringing, growing up, purity culture in the Bible Belt, and then I'll get into my own upbringing.
I also have notes, so if I'm not looking directly at the screen, forgive me. Oh, but as she said, I am Quindel Jones. You can call me Quinn. I am from Jackson, Mississippi in the South. I grew up here my whole life, and as you know, it is in the Bible Belt. So I grew up in the Church of Christ Holiness USA, COCHUSA. It's like an offshoot of like the Kojic kind of upbringing.
Yeah.
Very, men are the leaders,
Mhm.
women are the servers kind of dynamic. And I grew up with a lot of purity culture in my church, and it was honestly, it's so weird to talk about the church sometimes because it's simultaneously a home and a place of like a lot of damage. Like, so
Yes.
it's like, coming back after all this time, I've been feeling that majorly. I just graduated with my PhD, so I'm back here for.
Period. Hot for the PhD, baby. Okay. Black women. One thing about a black woman, they gonna get a degree. Okay.
Listen, I might get another one. I don't know. We just
You
gonna see.
know?
But yes, I grew up in New Lake, and I took abstinence classes against my will, of course. Like, we're children; they make us do these things. But I
Mhm.
took abstinence classes. I had etiquette classes, how to be a lady, how to sit and do all the things properly, and I had speech classes on how to say and like just a lot of classes on like how to be a certain kind of woman. And there was a lot of over sexualization. I have like really big breasts, so like there's certain things I wasn't allowed to wear. Just a lot of what's the word, censoring of pleasure and demonizing of pleasure. And I even wore "If he loves me, he'll wait" ring, and that was kind of like the culture I grew up around. So anytime I wanted to explore my sexuality, it was undercover. It was,
Mhm.
very much so sneaking around, and it's taken a long time to unlearn what it taught me and how to figure out how to be my own kind of woman, especially a
Mhm.
modern woman. I think I like that term. I think I very much so fit what people assume a modern woman is, and
Mhm.
I want to start talking more about like why that's okay. Like, we don't have to be like the women of before because we've seen the damage that these upbringings have done to them as well. So
100%. Yeah. My upbringing is similar to Quinn, except a lot of people, some of you guys know, some of you don't, but I'm a former PK, preacher's kid. I went to Christian school all my life. I went to church all my life, and I think it was around the age of 13 or 14 when I just really started having a lot of questions, and the first time I ever experienced like misogyny was in the church for my youth group. So I was constantly like in Bible class. We had a Bible class every single day. And so when it came to, my sensuality and sexuality, I remember like very young kind of like discovering like, oh, my body does something. And but also feeling shame. That was an immediate emotion. Yeah, really around the age of 13 or 14, there was lots of discussions happening, in youth group about, don't have sex out of wedlock, get pregnant, what I'm saying? Very much the Mean Girls like scene where they're like, don't get pregnant, you'll die, like it was nobody I felt like I could ask questions to. And it has taken years. I really feel like only in the last 2 or 3 years I've been able to truly embrace my body, not even just embrace my body, embrace pleasure. And even in the last few months, there's been an opening up of even just like what my future partner may look like and how love may look like in the future for me. So embracing my body has been a journey. I feel like it really started around the age of like 23, and I'm 26 now. So yeah, growing up in purity culture, growing up in the church, there's so much about purity culture that falls on the backs of women, right? The
Mm-hmm.
way we dress, the way we talk. If the skirt is too short, you may be a stumbling block. If somebody sees, your clavicles, baby, you may cause that man to lust. So much pressure falls on us to uphold this standard.
Yeah.
And I remember you said you had the ring as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it made me think of the Jonas Brothers when I think they talked about later on how the rings were kind of just they weren't really,
Yeah.
you know, it was, but the thing about like purity culture, I mean, I know we're talking about how we grew up as Black women, but it really was a point in time, even in mainstream media with Disney
Yeah.
stars,
Mm-hmm.
the act of being innocent, of being pure, was how things sold. So, I want to get into a little bit of what you feel like the toxicity of purity culture. What are some things you feel like it breeds?
You can probably speak to like the more Bible specifics than I can because there came a certain point where I've always been relatively contrary in some aspects and like a bit of a rebel. So there came points where when I had my questions and they weren't answered, I ain't even gonna worry about it. Like I
Right about the
divested. I divested from whatever they was talking about.
heart.
But I definitely one of the things I wrote down was I remember feeling like they would always preach that sex equals bad, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the lessons also were like women equal sex. Like women are the temptation. Our existence is going to make all the men and the people, it's going to ruin the church if we're in charge. It's going to make the men sin. We are the lesson. Women only have certain only places they should be, seen and not heard, which impacted my personality. It impacted the way I, chose relationships, very young, but the way I navigated, relationships with other people and like my self worth. I didn't really want to explore my body because I thought that was a bad thing to do. Like I wasn't supposed to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
whenever I would ask about like why am I not supposed to do that, I didn't get what I felt were sufficient answers.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of turned to the whole science. I hate to do the science and religion thing, but I really turned to the to the whole. Well, what does the school say? What does the book say about this?
Mm-hmm.
And when I would bring that back to my church, I would get so much pushback against having logic against religion and stuff like that. And it really separated me from a lot of my beliefs, and it took me a while to even decide how much I believed in what I was taught. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it also demonized pleasure in every way. There was something people would say to me growing up, like, you can't just do what you want. My dad would say it to me. My like people in my church would say it to me like about women, like we can't do what we want. Like we have to do
Mm-hmm.
what we're told. We have to
Mm-hmm.
do what we need to do for whoever that's not us.
Mm-hmm.
And that disconnected me from a lot. It disconnected me a lot from my body. From when I say pleasure, I talk about pleasure on my YouTube channel.
Which y'all
Um,
should subscribe to right now if you haven't done it. Okay.
but like pleasure is like anything that makes you feel good. Like pleasure does not just have to be sexual, although that's like the context we're talking about. But
Yeah.
pleasure is like things that make you happy. It's related to your desire. It's related to
Mm-hmm.
your your passions. And in the church, I feel like desire was like the no word. Like you're not
Yeah.
desire or of the devil. And so if you
Hmm.
anything that has to do with what you want, that's bad. Like no, 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 no,
Yep.
no. And that's really damaging for anyone trying to discover themselves. In your was it teenagehood,
Yep.
and it made me hesitant to explore masturbation. It made me have to sneak around to figure out what it meant to like somebody, and it kind of started some patterns that I didn't break free of until, like you said, 2, 3 years ago, in the way that I navigate relationships, like having to do things on the low, things on the side, like not being able to speak to things publicly.
Hmm.
And it's taken a while to like unlearn that it's okay to want things. And
Yes.
it's okay to talk about these things. And it's, oh,
Hmm.
there's so much about like you can't talk about it. That's so
Yes. The
limiting.
closed off conversation, like nothing is happening.
Yeah.
And something I remember I was discussing with a friend who grew up in the same background as us, and he's an older guy, older male, a white male actually. One of the things we discussed is like, being in youth group and being in church is that like I've always feel and I've realized you do a disservice to young Christian kids, or young folk when you're not having an open dialogue about sex. And because then you're not talking about how to protect yourself, and all those things. Like, and the thing about it, I feel like if you are going to have a youth group and you're really going to focus on making sure that they are safe, I feel like that should be the one place where you're really having open dialogue about it. Because if you don't tell them, somebody else will. They will go out and experience it, and somebody will take advantage of them because of their naivety, because of their innocence. And so I feel like that's one area where the church really, in my opinion, has to do better at. I feel like if you are gonna have kids be in that space and you want them to be comfortable and actually be open with you, like like a youth leader comes up to you like, hey, like let's talk, what's going on. There can't be like an automatic sense of shaming if a young person actually mentions what is going on in their head.
Yeah.
At 13, 14 years old, like, oh, I have a crush, or like, I was with this guy, I was with this girl, or whatever. There can't be automatic judgment that they feel in that space because then they're
Yeah.
not going to share. And like, I feel like it also something like to be a youth group leader or to be a youth pastor or whatever, you have to know that like that child may come to you before they go to their parents. Because
Mhm.
to you, you're the less scary adult. They feel like they can trust you. But the minute they feel like, oh, actually, this is not a safe space.
Which is, there was a case in point. There was actually a lot of like teen pregnancy around here when I was
Hmm.
around, and in my
Yep.
church. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So it was just like we see this girl having these kids, so we're gonna go talk to her to see like what is she doing? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's what's going on. Like you just like abstinence only, but there's people in here our age having
Hmm.
kids. Like
Yes. And it's
clearly, at least like I'm saying, like there's just there was a big disconnect from like what they're being taught, like what we were literally seeing, and
mm-hmm.
they wouldn't have a frank conversation about what
Mm-hmm.
was happening. And maybe if they had, maybe she wouldn't have been having as many kids or whatever, whatever. Like there wasn't that
Yeah.
space, like you said, to actually talk about the protection, the like STDs and like all this stuff. Only on the like you will get HIV or something if you
Yeah.
that was it. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
else.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned how, growing up, in church and school, whatever, you're seeing young women get pregnant, and automatically you see the demonization that happens, particularly to the woman in that case. And then
Mm-hmm.
that also breeds that, oh, this is shameful. Now it's like, oh, I can't do this. And it's like, it really just like seeing the way other young people that engaged in any intimate act or activity, the way it was handled, the way it was punished, it really makes you feel like, okay, if I do something bad, even to myself, if I explore myself, whatever, something bad's gonna happen to me. And I think now, obviously, y'all, time and place. You shouldn't be hunching on school or church grounds. Okay, get it. Time and place. But I think I always saw like, oh my goodness, like they are being extremely punished
Yeah,
for
like
like,
ostracized and made an example.
yes, even
Mm-hmm.
for like, even like, and the thing about it, most of the time it's like kissing, hugging. Don't hug a boy too long. Y'all shouldn't be sitting next to each other.
All outside at the same time.
Yes, like there was such a separation of like boys and girls, and then yet that same entity expects you to know what to do when you get married, to have kids, to go forth and multiply. Well, child, how am I supposed to do that?
Right, when you done told me I'm not supposed to like any of that stuff.
Purity culture really does breed me like shame and insecurity, like you mentioned, like exploring your body felt wrong, and like it's almost like the best way to describe it is like there's this little voice in your head that's like even like sometimes when I put on certain clothes, like me and Quinn were talking earlier off camera about like, my top. Like if I bend over too much, my nipple gonna show out. You know what I mean? But like sometimes I have to remind myself that Semiyah, you're 26.
It's
No
your
one's
body.
checking you.
You're
Yeah,
not gonna get.
like exactly. Like no
I tell
one's
myself that all the time. You're not gonna get in trouble.
yeah. You got to remind yourself, like, no one's gonna check. Like, girl, the skirt doesn't have to go to your knee. Okay, the top is not too low. Like, you're fine if you feel comfortable and that's what you want to wear. And this
Mhm.
actually kind of goes to a bit later about like practical ways that I embrace pleasure in my body. But yeah, like sometimes I have to remind myself, no one is going to check you for how you adorn yourself. You
Also, on
know?
a similar note to what you're saying, like about your clothes, I don't have it anywhere on me, but in those etiquette and abstinence classes, there was a lot of respectability politics going on there. The like
Mm.
one of the booklets I had, it was talking about like unkempt hair and about like good girl,
Anti-black
bad girl.
as well.
Oh yes, and very anti-black, very like respectability. Like if you're not a buttoned-up modern
Hmm.
woman, then you're a harlot and you're bad. It
Hmm.
was there was a lot of that I was. I remember like there was this sheet where it was like good woman, bad woman, and you like check a box on each side, and I was like, dang. So I'm not a good.
You was like these boxes kind of. Hold
Oh, it was so messed up because I'm like, obviously you want the good answers,
on.
but
Yeah, yeah.
none of this is resonating with me, and
You
like
like, oh
I'm
wait,
gonna get in trouble for the answers. So like, there's this expectation, like I don't even know how to say this without sounding bad, but like that I knew how I was supposed to act in public, and I knew how I could act
yes.
in private. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you
Like
start masking in a sense.
100%. Exactly that. Like, oh, okay, so this is what I gotta do when I'm here. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I'll do that, and then anywhere else, I'll do what I can on the low. Which is a very sad thing to do to women. Like making
Mm-hmm.
us smaller, can't live out loud, can't accept how we actually are.
Mm-hmm.
Very very like demonizing of our actual selves.
Especially like, okay, with me being an R&B artist and like the way that I dress and my aesthetic, something I don't like, it's because I don't consider it a compliment. Like most of the time, like for my cover art and things like that, you guys know for the most part, I am covered. However, this is not an intentional like I'm trying to be the modest R&B. I'm not. It's just what I felt. That you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And so I remember one time, like, I kind of started hearing, like, oh, I love how, like, you don't have to take off all your clothes to. And I'm like, babes, that's not a compliment. And I don't like when people do that. Like, just because I'm not one of the R&B girls that's getting a little naked, when I do it, okay, I don't want to hear
Mhm.
no. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a compliment to me. Like, you don't have to, like, put me up on a pedestal because I just decided to wear long sleeves and my cover single art. Like, the same girl that is like wearing lingerie in hers, the song is still fire. She still looks beautiful. She still looks good. Like it is all about a choice. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
sensuality isn't embracing it isn't just about like being naked all the time. You can still be covered. It's like it
You're
really is like your own. Yes, it is a choice. Having the autonomy over your body and like growing up in the space we did, we have been really learning how to embrace that autonomy in the last few years.
yeah.
Choosing like I like this. I actually do like this. I want to wear this. Okay, maybe I actually don't like this. Maybe I want to try this.
And like in a sexual context, same. Like on the fact
Mhm.
that like, doing things we probably don't want to do, things like when we do
Mhm.
finally explore that, like, we're not supposed to know what we like or be able to
Mhm.
voice those things out loud. We've never had any practice of these conversations. So many women are like doing things that hurt them
Yeah.
sexually, like
Mhm.
literally or like emotionally, because there was no space to talk about those things. And now
Mhm.
you don't. Now when we're like, in our late 20s, now we can finally see like, oh, I don't like that, or oh, I actually
Yes.
enjoy this. And if we had
Mhm.
that space to even just talk about it beforehand, maybe we wouldn't have had those like negative experiences to like be the guide. Like positive
Mhm.
experience can be the guide.
That is a perfect segue actually into the third point, like the limitations of purity culture, because we are not setting aside time early enough when we really start like, you're coming into your own, you're realizing your body can do certain things, like you're realizing that pleasure and, arousal is a thing. You're
Come on,
not
girl. Out
taking
of bed.
Yeah, you're not taking time to like really think like, oh, I don't like this. And it happens a lot later, you know?
Mhm.
And I know for me, like I said, really in the last few years, like I even now, like had remember like there's no shame in this. Like I can desire this and this is okay. Like and that's why like for me, the joy with reading romance novels is like reading erotica and things like that. I'm able to learn like, oh, like I'm kinda into that. I like that.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And then sometimes I read something so long, I'm like, ooh, okay, girl.
Those
Y'all,
books were at the bottom of the closet. I had to sneak and read those, but
you
that's
know, listen, I grew up in the era of Wattpad and fan fiction. The girls was writing some shit. All right, okay.
look. The
And
Tumblr post was like,
some, girl, some of the fan fiction. Listen, the real ones know, okay? Like I think that probably the first time I ever like encountered anything like BDSM related was probably like a fan fiction I found on Tumblr. That really, when I say the internet raised me, in a sense, it really did. The thing about it, even like when we're like you said, you would kind of go to the bottom of the closet, you know, you gotta slide it up on, you know what I'm saying? Like really going into those spaces on online space and then reading books, that was kind of the way we were learning to explore, trying to open a doorway for ourselves because we didn't have anyone to talk to about it.
I just really hate the brainwashing that it did. Like I remember writing a essay on like someone that was a doctor, like some kind of like OBGYN had wrote a book about sexual pathways and like oxytocin and like all this stuff. And I remember I wrote a paper that was about like why you should wait for marriage. And like I was using this woman's book talking about like oxytocin is released and so you need to have a special intimate
Mm,
partner and like like I was just like going off all the things they were telling me. Like I took like real science and like and I took like what I was taught and like, mixed it together to make this point, and it was so like upon reflection it was so bad that
mm,
was how I thought it had to be. Like when you frame intimacy in that way, it is very limiting in the way you approach
yes.
relationships, and it is also very like, at least in where I'm from, it's a very self-sacrificing way to look at relationships when you
Mm-hmm.
don't, approach them from a place of personal desire and pleasure, but only from what you're instructed to do by your one and only and whatever
Mm-hmm.
someone that's supposed to lead you. You're not supposed to be the kind of person to lead yourself. Like it
Mm-hmm.
really was limiting in how I wanted to, what kind of relationships I wanted, and that's why I have a lot of the politics I do to this day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I love how you mentioned like the essay and then you also brought the checklist earlier about when you were younger having to check off all the things and it made me think of a book that I recently threw out. And I really feel like this book is kind of the core reason as to why I struggled so much with shame when it came to embracing pleasure. And it was called, I don't know, the Virtuous Woman or something like that. But it was like a book that was kind of centered on young girls ages from 12 to 16.
Mhm.
And I remember reading it because, you know, a woman in the church or a teacher gave it to me. And the thing about it, even I don't hold resentment towards her because I knew she was just doing what she felt like was the right, you know, even then, like,
Yeah.
I don't blame her. I mean, I was going through books, giving things away, and I came across that book and automatically was just like triggering. I was like, oh my God, like, this book is kind of like the main reason why, like, particularly when it came to like self pleasure and masturbation, I was like, so much shame. I opened the book again just to read it and just to kind of like, it just took me back. I remember just reading back through those passages and like there were some accounts from real girls, like real young women experiencing things. I'm just like that was such a pivotal point in my life and I think I was about 14 or so when I got it. And reading that and then also still trying to embrace myself, it just made it that much more of a struggle. And it definitely set me back. It set me back a few years from actually, you know, embracing myself. And it actually, I wanted to ask you, do you remember the first time you felt shame in regards to like your body and or desire?
I don't know if there's like a particular moment. It just seemed because it feels like it was so pervasive to like the
Mm,
whole experience. Like I don't know if there was like a pivotal moment. The moment I separated a little bit from it, like where I started to question it, that was like that's very stark in my mind. When I stopped going to those classes like on purpose and like started
yeah.
speaking for myself and being like, there did come a point, thank God, where my mom became a bit more of my advocate and like less of a like just do what the church says and more of a like having frank
Mm.
conversations with me. And so then I came into a point where I was like, well, my mom said I can wear this to church today. She said I'm gonna leave the house with this on.
Period. I know that's
So
right.
one more person pull my top up or my skirt down, we're gonna have a problem.
Mm.
Like that was a moment where I was like, I'm tired of this, like because it was just so much. Like I can't come here without you censoring my body, telling me what I can and can't do, like that I remember very clearly. But like all before that, it was like, and I was also I don't know how big I am now, but I was also a lot bigger when I was
Mm.
younger. So there was also like it's like double shame that like I'm not attractive already, and then I'm not supposed to
Mm.
be even thinking of myself in that way. So like
Mm.
it was like I'm this, you know, ugly, fat, undesirable person. Why would I ever want to be with anybody? Why would anyone ever want me? I'm not supposed to want anything or talk about anything. Like it
Mm.
was just very like, oh, I'm feeling emotional. I'm sorry, I felt it in the back of my.
No, like that's so rare, and I'm glad you mentioned that because desirability does play a big part even in this conversation. I'm glad that more people are realizing, like, like pretty privilege is a thing. Desirability, all those things are real. They do affect how you feel and how you perceive yourself because you are watching other people are perceiving other people that look like you. You're like, oh, well, she looks like me and she doesn't, so maybe, or if you're a guy or he doesn't, so maybe this means I'm not attractive. Maybe this means I'm not pretty. Maybe this means I'm not beautiful. So I'm glad you brought that up. Like it's a very real thing, and that has to be included when we're having a conversation about even learning to embrace our own bodies and what that means to us.
Did you have a particular moment where you?
Yeah, like I said, when I got that book, for sure, that was definitely because I remember I think I read all of it, and I was reading was a really big thing for me in general. So, there was that, and I think in particular the moment, another one is like I remember one of my friends had got in trouble kissing a guy or something in the hallway, whatever, something like that, and I remember kind of hearing what other people were saying about her.
Mhm.
Like kind of the whisperings happening, like, oh, she was doing this, she was doing that. Mind you, this is a Christian school. And it's like, this is FYI, like things still happen in Christian schools and private schools, okay? The girl's still getting down, okay? They don't play. Um,
Those trips, girl.
listen, okay? Listen, they was getting to it. And I just remember like there are just so many instances of like, seeing that just how those situations were handled, seeing the punishment doled out, hearing the whispering, and then like also I remember particularly like I think for me it always came down with clothes.
Mhm.
When I've always feel like the clothes was like the one way I was like trying to find my doorway into embracing my body. And I remember always being policed for how I looked. Like, when we had dress down days or days we could dress up for like, we had our music and arts competitions. Like that was the one time I could really like, pop out and show niggas. You feel me? And so I remember like there was one time I was wearing this red top. It was a deep cut, low V or whatever. Not really that deep cut, but like I also had like a little, it was like
Mhm.
right here. It was not that deep. And I remember like it was always a woman that was
Yeah.
pointing it out as well. And I think this also led to a bit of, they be hating on me. You know what I mean?
Oh my
Like,
god, that's exactly what I thought about when you started talking about the
mhm.
whispering. It bred
Yeah,
so much elitism in me.
yes, like she hating, you know what I'm saying? Like it also breeds that as well because it was always a woman, of course, that was pointing it out to you. And so I remember like it was a whole ordeal. She was like, "Oh, well, you actually maybe need to go up to the office to like I don't know. I think this day I remember I was genuinely like, I don't see what's wrong.
Yeah.
I don't see what's wrong." And she was like, "Okay, well, maybe you need to go up to the office and like we can see if the principal thinks it's okay." My principal was a male, white male, and which also puts him in an awkward position as well because now he has
Yeah.
to look at my body and he's like I remember him saying he was like, I don't see the issue, I don't see the problem with any of this, right? And I remember like it was embarrassing like having to like walk up there, then having a man inspect how I look. Like it was always top being too low or like my skirt being just not to where it should be, and like it
Mhm.
had to be knee length and I was tall.
Yeah.
Baby, they're not making the long skirts. Okay? Look, even the uniform skirts were getting shorter. Okay, I don't know what was happening. I don't know what's going on.
Like
And
what
so,
are curtains?
Yes, like it's just in general, this the policing of our bodies, what we can wear. There's so many moments like that. Like you said, it's not really like even just a collective one.
And I wanted to say when you brought up like something happened with your friend and like people were snickering, I will
Mm-hmm.
say, and I think the church culture contributed a lot to. Before I went to college, I leaned into like that whole elitism, oh well then I'm better than you
Mm.
way of navigating the world as a way to protect myself from
Yeah.
all of these like ways of policing me and what I can or can't do. In one way, it was like like, oh, well, because I act like this when I'm here, I'm a good girl. And so I'm better than those dirty, dirty girls. And so
Mm.
I am, an example and I'm so much better. And these girls are hating on me. And, like it was a big protection, like mechanism that I
Yeah.
like created for myself. But it was also a way to like demean other women.
Yes.
And it was when I like look back at some of those old Facebook statuses and stuff where it was just like, there was no need to do all of that, but like I know why I was doing it. I was trying to like be
Mm-hmm.
seen a certain way and separate myself from the things
Mm-hmm.
that were bad, and so I had to put myself on a level above other people.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of women do that now to this day,
Yeah.
thanks to purity culture. Like oh my gosh, it's irritating me so bad. The whole female gaze, male gaze phenomenon that's going
Oh
on right
yeah.
now.
Oh Lord.
Like, female gaze is the modest woman and the male gaze is anything that's,
Mm.
revealing. And first of all, you're using the term wrong, but also
Right.
it's just like another way to to separate yourself from like better and other people that make different choices than you. And like a lot of like the Christian purity upbringing is about like placing yourself as this example, like this good example. And
Mhm.
that it's very damaging when you either when I because for me I was masking so it wasn't even real, but also
Yeah.
like when a lot of people like do internalize that and treat people that way forever, and like including their children, if they
Mm-hmm.
aren't conforming the way that they're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to say that because like I went from being like a kind of like one of those to like talking about those kind of girls, like
Mm-hmm.
talking about people. I was like, there came a
Yeah.
point where I just joined in, on
And
doing
I'm
it.
glad you mentioned that. I love your honesty when you say that as well, because that is a very real thing. And some people would not admit to that, but I feel like we all have been there. We have felt like, oh well, especially growing up where we grew like, oh well, I don't do this, I don't do that, so I must be, you know what I'm saying? I must really be her. And like that's what I always say, like whenever I even get a sense or a peek of people trying to put me on a pedestal above another woman that does something differently from me, I
Mm-hmm.
always say like first off, I would wear that. So I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, just like I appreciate and I really love the girls. Like when I go on, I love seeing the mini skirts. I love the low cut tops. They inspire me. I
Mm-hmm.
love it. Like that's one of the reasons. Like, oh, I love following you. I love seeing the way you dress. Like, I was just like, oh my goodness. Like, I cannot wait till I get to the point where I'm ready to. You know what I'm saying? Like, we love the hoochies. Yeah, I also feel like with women that are like that do the short skirts, low cut tops. I also feel like it is a direct message saying like, I don't care how you perceive me. I'm gonna wear what I want to wear,
Let me tell you
and
something.
that, ooh,
One hundred
I love
percent
it.
that. Let me tell you.
Yes.
Coming home, so like I've lived in Virginia. That's how I met you in person. I love her. I love her so much. But I lived in Virginia the last 5 years, so I haven't been home except for like random holidays. And so my first Sunday back to church, I wore like is it called a halter, where it was like a V and then it wraps around your neck.
Yeah, 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 Halter, yeah,
So essentially, my back was out, but I wore my mother's jacket over it because when I got there, it was like your back, your shoulders, like
yeah.
should you
Lord, child.
you have worn this to church? And that came up where like during service, like there's a pew, so you can't see like a whole back. Where I just took it off,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Because it was just like we're not gonna. I'm 28 years old, basically. Like we're not gonna keep doing this. And then there also in the first Sunday I wore what I wore to my defense, my literal PhD defense. It was a halter. Is it called halter? I don't know the names of dresses. Like I don't know the names, but it's like there's
Visitor.
no sleeves, and it
Yeah.
was like no sleeves at all, and it was like it was right here, and then it's my rest of my body's covered. And there was so
Mhm.
much pulling up steel, and I'm like, my whole body is covered right now. This is a
Mhm.
full length dress, and you're concerned about this right here. I'm
Mhm.
27 years old. You know what I'm saying? And like, I wore a different dress, like a dress more like this, and people were like, "Oh, why didn't you wear that last Sunday?" And I'm a grown woman. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, to this day, like, I do in some sense what you're saying, like, do choose my clothing in a way of like, I get to wear what I want. You're not gonna tell me what I can or can't wear. And that's why
Mhm.
I kind of built up the kind of fashion sense that I have or whatever. But
Mhm.
like what you're saying, like I can use my clothes, and I also use my tattoos. I use a lot of my self expression as a statement in my ability to choose what I look like
Mhm.
and what I stand for. So I wrote about how a lot of purity culture teaches women to prioritize service over self, and
Mhm.
when you finally have sex, it's kind of put in the perspective of being done to you. You don't really do it with someone. It's not for you. It's not really about pleasure or enjoyment. It's about childbirth. So you should only be having sex when you're ready for children, not because you want to feel good. And how
Mhm.
that kind of limits women's enjoyment of it, and how they will have a lot of mediocre, unfulfilling sex for a long time because they weren't taught to view it in a way that was also for them. And
Mhm.
then when we do get in like relationships, it can be very hard to unlearn that. There becomes a lot of performing in our sexual
Yeah.
relationships. A lot of just like doing what you think your partner likes or what you're supposed to do, like, or some things are so taboo that you would never ever like BDSM or anal or all those things, like
Mhm.
you're not supposed to like or know about those things. So it's very limiting in your sexual experiences and your sexual expression. Like, you know, you might feel negatively about yourself because like I kind of did, like I'm into BDSM, and I got
Mhm.
swear to God, I got all the things very
It's so
much
funny
so.
you mention that because I remember I was reading a book, right? And like I've never been like a degradation person. Like anything like too much, I'm just like, oh, because I'll cry. Okay, I'll cry. Okay, like don't call me anything too crazy. Like I'm just like
I'm gonna
I
say
don't
that
know.
now, but
Right. But then I'm reading a book. I read a book and the male MC, like he called the female MC, he was like, "Oh, you're a pretty little slut." And I was like, there was a part of my brain that was tickled. I was like, "What? I wait, because maybe if you put pretty
yes,
gorgeous,
I just yeah,
or beautiful in front of it, I was like,
I
hold
just
on.
got this. I
Yeah,
did this yesterday. I said my degradation era is over, but the praise kick era, just put gorgeous or good,
yeah.
something
It's
like
that,
that.
yeah, like I was like, this is not. I just think like for me, it's like it's all about balance. Like nothing full on. Like don't call me nothing crazy because baby, I'll cry. Like you really think that'll be like
I
pretty
dry
too?
up immediately. Like you gotta stop.
Yeah, like please, like sir, do not call me that. Excuse you. Like you know what I
Oh,
mean? And
yeah.
so like when I heard that and I read that I was like, you know what? This satisfies the praise in me, which I've always known was a thing. I was like, we definitely like being told you're doing great, babes. Like because really, am I doing okay? Am I doing a good
Yeah.
job? Like you know. And
I
then
need
like
to know. You need to say things to me.
yes, like that definitely is a real thing. So I'm glad you brought that up. Like you really will discover like you know what? Maybe I didn't like this, but I heard it. I saw a version of this, a
Mm-hmm.
niche of this, and it appealed to me.
Just on the like the topic of like desire and discovering what you
Mhm.
want. Moving to Virginia was a godsend for me. Like when they say it opened my eyes to so much that I did not know was out there. Okay, like
Mhm.
even with locks, like I had that wasn't a thing around here growing up. So and I never would have gotten them had I not moved to Williams. Like just like a small example.
Wow.
Yeah. So like just like being exposed to new things and like being able to actually talk about things frankly and explore them made a world of difference. That's exactly why I started documenting my life to show like women here and other places that like there is an alternative to the messages that we were given growing up. Like you can be yourself,
Mhm.
your whole self, and still be successful, still be happy. You
Mhm.
don't have to be that one image that is put for us. Um, but in that topic, I learned that like when we can't be upfront about our desires, we lean into those false pretenses and like,
Mhm.
oh, you're not supposed to. So like with hookup culture, for example, you're not supposed to say you want sex only, or you're not supposed
Mhm.
to like want to have certain kind of relationships. So waiting around is normal. You know, letting someone like kind of coerce you into sex is normal, and you know, not being able to just say like what you do or don't want is so taboo that it kind of allows like those rape culture norms to survive. Of like, oh, you're only supposed to dress a certain way. What were you doing? Why didn't you say something? Like because we weren't told we were supposed to say something. You know, like there's certain things
Mhm.
that are just kind of seen as normal when we're not allowed to be upfront about our desires, and
Mhm.
we're not allowed to be a willing participant in our own pleasure, in our own sexual
Mhm.
experiences. When you're unwilling, when you're supposed to be like, oh no, I mean, I really mean yes, but no. Like when you
Yeah.
have like that, like it makes it hard to name when you have been
Mhm.
coerced. It makes it hard to name when you have been assaulted. At least for me, like it has been, it's been a hard thing to navigate, trying to figure out like what was the line, and trying to,
Mhm.
like, you know, like understanding like where it is. It's been a real issue for me, because it's like I don't I was kind of like playing a part for some time, and so now I'm like, what is really okay, you know? Like I actually don't like it when someone is just hanging around to try to have sex with me. Like why can't I just say like,
Yeah.
you know, I only want to do this, I don't want to do that. Like it took me a while to have that kind of freedom in my voice, because I was so used to um, being unwilling, to supposed to be coy, and I'm supposed to be modest.
Mhm.
I'm not supposed to be vocal about these things or even have these conversations with my partner. So like I'm so, like, you know,
Yeah.
like there's no space to talk about what is or isn't okay and like stuff like that. And I feel like a lot of like young people that I've talked to, where they don't even recognize, they're like, you know, like he kind of pressured you into that.
Purity culture encourages silence rather than encouraging conversation. Like
Yeah.
it's just like be silent, don't actually say anything, and that breeds into so many other areas of your life. Even like I know we are focusing on sensuality and pleasure, it breeds into so many other areas. Like you said, like finding that line, what it is for you. Even just voicing, saying like I don't like this, I don't enjoy this. I mean, I feel like for both of us, like we kind of learned more when we divested from that
Hmm.
space. I do, maybe it's different. Maybe some people can learn this while they're in it, but I just feel like it is much harder to do if you were in it 25/8. I feel like the most growth I've had was when I, stopped going to youth group, when I really stopped going to church. Like, I wasn't able to really embrace myself, learn what my line is while I was still in that environment. It was just hard for me to do. Like I said, it could be different for somebody else, but.
Yeah, like and I mentioned this in my sex talk video, that normalization of struggle, you know, and that bleeds into everywhere in purity culture. Like I know women to this day, older than me, my age, below my age, where they are in unhappy situations, but like they don't feel like they can say anything, or like they're not allowed to leave, because like struggle is normal, uncomfort is normal in this culture, like where it's, you know, you're supposed to be, you know, you're in service to others, so like
Yeah.
your self feelings aren't that important, as long as you're helping someone else or doing something for someone else. Like it's okay that you're struggling, because the ultimate comfort is on the other side when you're dead. So your
Hmm.
life can be full of struggle, because you'll be good elsewhere, and so you
Hmm.
accept all kinds of things because struggle's okay. And it wasn't until I divested from that kind of thing
Struggle's
where
like
I
a
said,
reward, like,
yeah,
oh, you're going through a lot, so you really are. And that's another thing that really affects self-esteem and confidence. Like,
mm-hmm,
I realized, was like, oh, no wonder why I struggle to really, like, really feel myself sometimes. Because, like, I grew up in a space where, like, I was told that, like, you are nothing without. You are this. You don't deserve this, quite literally. And it was like, no wonder why I'm struggling now as an adult to be like, oh, I do deserve this. I want this. I like this. So what are some practical ways that you embrace pleasure in your life? Some ways you found something that helps you.
oh my gosh, okay, I got a whole list here, but before I say my
Period.
list, I feel like in order to, or maybe these are the ways to get to that, but like I really feel like there comes a point where you have to stop performing and masking to even allow yourself to do these things. You need to
Mhm.
be able to listen to what you feel
Mhm.
um, like regularly, like in a platonic way, like just in your everyday life, and sexually. You have to
Mhm.
really start practice caring about what you want and what you
Mhm.
need, and like get in tune with your senses. So like in a small way, like last year I would start like really trying to pay attention to when I was hungry, for example. Like there's so
Mm.
many ways I feel like we disconnect ourselves. I think this is called interoception is the word, where like we disconnect ourselves from our senses, like where our body is sending us signals for things, but
Yeah.
we're so used to ignoring
Mhm.
them that it doesn't pay us any mind. And I feel like getting that together in like a small way helps with, you know, the big ways sexually in relationships and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Like not ignoring when I'm hungry. Like my stomach is growling, it's actually too late. You've been hungry for a while. But if your stomach is growling, you need to eat. If you need to pee, my little sister had to go to the hospital because she was ignoring the fact that she had to pee. She got a little yeast infection.
Mm.
Like if you're feeling discomfort, your stomach is hurting when you're around someone, and you just discard it, because it's something, like there's so many ways I feel like we disconnect ourselves from our senses. So in order to build a sensuality practice with myself, I have to get back in tune with like, what are the signs of me feeling good? What are the signs of me
Mm-hmm.
feeling bad? Like figuring out
Mm-hmm.
what those are, so that when I started trying stuff, I could have a real honest answer with myself about which way I wanted to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I feel like even like your intuition can like also send you signals through your body as well, like especially with your stomach.
and so I
Hmm.
built a sensuality practice, and I like to call it every night is date night. I haven't been able to do it while I'm at home, because I don't have all my things with me.
Right, yeah.
Um, uh, but like every night is date night means that like I have this list of things that I do to make sure that I'm connecting to my body. So
Hmm.
I love movement as a way to connect with my body and my sensuality.
Hmm.
There's a time where I would dance on like Instagram and Snapchat every single day. I'm more
Hmm.
professional now, so I'm trying to figure out the line between doing that
Right, yeah,
and not doing it. But like daily dancing and twerking, like your hips are very central
they
to
hold a
like,
lot of tension as well.
yeah. And so
Hmm.
like dancing is something, it's also just a free form of expression. Your body is literally moving with the music. Like you don't always control that. And so that's something I really gotten used to. Like whenever I'm out of practice with dancing, I can tell. And I have to get
Hmm.
back with like doing it regularly. And I get to like, it's just such an embodiment practice for me. Like dancing, I love it so
Hmm.
much. And then even similarly like yoga and meditation. Doing that,
Yes, love the yoga girlies.
yeah, but you be feeling stuff in your body that you don't even realize sometimes. Like, I'm feeling a stretch in a bone. I didn't even realize was there. Like creating an
Yeah.
awareness of yourself. It's so essential.
I started doing yoga. It's been about almost 2 years now, and because someone I've always, I played sports all throughout high school, middle school, and so like I've always been
You
used to
like a track
cardio.
girl?
Like,
You're a track girl. You said you were tall.
yes, I did run track for a little bit as well. And so like I associated like cardio and like, basketball stuff, there's conditioning, pain. Like if I'm in pain, like, oh, I'm about to like pass out, then like this was good. That was a good workout. So I really had to reconnect my or like kind of revision my idea of like what working out feels good. Like or what it is to me. Because I
Mhm.
really had a bad relationship with it for a while and I just wasn't having any or seeing any progress. And so when I started doing yoga, it's such an intentional time like because you're literally setting aside time to be in tune with your body and I do follow Ariana Elizabeth classes on YouTube, so and she's I love her and
Mhm.
like just the intentional breathing like oh, remove the tongue from the roof of your mouth, are you clenching your jaw? I'm like, you don't even realize like, oh my gosh, like I'm clenched,
You need to
girl.
join my Resilient People Club because we do yoga every Sunday.
Man, I'm gonna have to get into it. I'm gonna have to get into it. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to get into it.
have you tried a yoga by Viola? She's also really
Oh
amazing.
no, I haven't. I
I
haven't.
have a whole list of black girl yogis on YouTube, and I follow that for every Sunday when we do yoga. That's why I said that.
Okay.
But
Okay. You can send that to me. Send that to me.
she's really
Yeah.
good too. Like we're getting you to be like, she'll say, accept that ease is always available to you. If you're pushing yourself in a way that
Mm,
feels uncomfortable, you can
hmm.
always choose ease. And like that has been so
Hmm.
much for me.
Yeah,
So
like yoga really leaves you no choice but to really sit with yourself and really listen to what your body is saying. And like especially the breathing aspect, because I realize sometimes like, damn, like I'm not even really taking time to breathe. And it's like at least for these 30 minutes, 20 minutes, or 45 minutes, it's just about me. Like, for one thing, girl, I love final Shavasana. Okay? When I'm okay, girl, I remember the first time I was like, I love it here. This every time. We do this every time. Like, but it
it's
really, it's
so
like sometimes, like, especially as like such a person that really is trying to, unpack my relationship with productivity and always doing something, like,
mhm.
it's good to really sit down somewhere, and just breathe. So yeah, yoga has been also for me a really intentional way that I've learned to embrace and listen to my body. So yeah.
Another way I do it, embracing my body and my sensuality, is intentional mirror work. and
Mhm.
masturbation.
Mhm.
So I, for this past year, I kind of recorded in some of my vlogs where I wrote affirmations on a mirror, and every day I
Mhm.
would say them to myself in the mirror. Like I would read them out,
Mhm.
and like now I can say them by heart. And so just like having that time to one really look at myself. I don't know if it's other if maybe it's I'm a bit vain now or something, but I just feel like when I grew up, I did not look
No, because the body is tea, the face is tea. You're not
at
vague. It's just
myself.
facts.
But
No.
you know, like, I feel like I didn't look at myself nearly as clearly or as much when I was younger because I was so ashamed of what I looked like and like that you're not
Mhm.
supposed to be, into what you look like. But it's also a bit of that. I feel like growing up where like if you're a smart girl, you're not supposed to care about what you look like, kind of vibe.
Mhm.
And so it was like, the fashionable girls are one, and then the smart girls are like, plain. And, it was like, that was like
Mhm.
a big dichotomy for me growing up. And so I've kind of been intentional in my adulthood about like merging that like I can be smart and fashionable. I don't know if that's like,
Mhm.
but like that's something that I felt like I really tried to get myself to understand. So like looking at myself, being intentional about like being in the mirror, talking to myself, having conversations. It's been life changing for
Mhm.
my self acceptance. There came a time where I would literally I lived alone a lot, thank God. And so I took a lot of time naked in the mirror also. Because
Yes. Just being naked. You just gotta walk around naked, y'all.
it's literally
Okay.
though like a big part of my like self esteem issues was my inability to accept what I look like. Like there was so much of
Mm.
like wearing jackets or hiding myself or like just like moving past the mirror really quickly. Like it took me a
Mhm.
lot of time to legitimately just like hold on, let me just see, like just see what I look
Yeah.
like. So that was very intentional for me. And then like adding masturbation to it. Sometimes I masturbate in the mirror, sometimes I do not. But like it makes it a real immersive pleasure experience. Like I don't know how much you looked at your vagina when you were younger, but I didn't like look at it like that.
Mhm.
And it went, girl. That might have been TMI.
Yeah.
but
You,
like,
you said, hold up, wait, cause she's cute.
but like
Yeah.
it's new, and also I went to the doctor one time. I don't know if it was a woman or a man. No, it was a woman. I had a female OB/GYN for like a really long time, and one time I went to get my usual, and she was like, do you know if other women in your family clits are this large?" And I was like, "Excuse me?" I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like it's not like that's not. I don't normally see them like this. These are a family thing because it's a sign of like
Oh
higher.
yeah, like yeah,
Um,
like hereditary. Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, girl, how would I know the answer to that? Like, how would I know? We don't talk
Like
about
what?
things.
Like, hey, mom, is yours? Let me see.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I was like, and then it also just kind of made me super self conscious and
Yeah.
about it. And like, there was a whole thing growing up with like head and niggas wouldn't get. Like, it was like I was very self conscious
Right.
about
Oh.
very subconscious
Oh.
about my vagina and the way she looked like, smelled like, or whatever, the hair, like all
Not
so
to
much.
smell like roses. It's an organ. Okay. It's an organ. Okay.
You know what I mean? And so like taking the time to look at myself in that way too, like, oh, I'm a fan. Like now I'm a fan. I'm a
You love
just
her. Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
everything is pure honey. So, I would spend my time like legitimately in the mirror, just trying to figure out like what I liked, what it looked like when I liked something. If you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I didn't always know these things. Like I'm a real scientist in that way where I need to like see and experiment
Yeah.
things. So
No. Yeah.
with myself and
Mhm.
my body, so, like mirror work has been a major way that I've like actually connected to my body. Because I would find myself thinking about what they think I look like while I'm having sex instead of thinking about how I feel.
Mm.
So I kind of just had to figure out what I look like for myself, so I wouldn't have to worry about what they thought I looked like, so that I could
Mhm.
actually enjoy the sensations and not be in my
Mhm.
head about the session the whole time. So like mirror work, masturbation, like figuring out like what do I like, what do I
Mhm.
look like, like what is my foundation,
Mhm.
for for any of these experiences was like a major thing. Something that I still do to this day, like just trying to like stay connected, like because what we look like changes all the time, and like what we like
Yes.
changes by year, And if I don't stay connected to myself in that way, I might be putting myself in situations that I could have been intentionally avoiding.
Mhm. And like
you
that's
know.
important too. Like I'm even trying myself to more mirror work, and like sometimes like even especially when I wax, like I don't know like it's because girl something you just need to see. You just need to see everything, and like I was telling one earlier, like waxing has really become like it is a practice. It is something I sequester time for myself. I really have tried to learn to really like take my time with that. Like and also like especially when it comes like to waxing and things like that, whether you wax, whether you shave, like I really learned like I do that for me. Okay,
Hmm.
like that's just a really personal preference to me. Like, girl, like it is okay. Like
Yeah.
whether it's giving Tupac, whether it's giving, Little Shaq, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm
Ever did like a pattern or like a letter or something
I
like
want to
that?
try that next. I want a heart. Real bad. I've been doing my own since like 2020 because that was like my hobby. Like that's the hobby I picked up. Like I was like,
I love it.
I couldn't go nowhere. I was like, shoot, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna figure it
Yeah.
out. And yeah, like that's one of the ways like I've really tried to make it a practice. And like also when I get out the shower, like you said, taking some time in the mirror and then also being intentional with how I moisturize my body. Like also like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like the okay, oil and then body butter and then
It's
like
so much fun. Yeah, it's legit. It's legitimate like uh effort to like do that for yourself.
yes. Because
Hmm.
you can feel the pressure, especially like I know like when you're in a rush, you trying to like do all the things like you're not actually taking the time to really get yourself together and I hate that. I'm realizing now like I'm so used to trying to like take my time that when I do got to rush, I'm like oh Lord, like
Just hot spots
it's
and go. Hmm.
yes, like you really do. I remember I was having a conversation with my best friends about this, but like romancing yourself. And like even though like this conversation is focused primarily on women and women and people that identify as women, like I do feel like sometimes maybe one of the reasons why men, hetero men in particular, struggle sometimes with romance is because they don't feel like they have the same autonomy to romance themselves, you know?
When I got into BDSM and things, it really taught me a lot about just like pleasure in a real personal way. Like you have to do all these surveys about like where you stand, and you have so many conversations with people
Mhm.
about your hard no's, your hard yeses. Like, oh, you have to be very intentional about learning your like hard no's and hard yeses. And my point in what you were saying, um, when I got there, it made me approach just even conversation with men differently. And I would ask men, it's so funny. I remember this so clearly. So being up there in Virginia, I would come home for the break and I had, like my usual call ons, like, hey, I'm in town.
Mhm.
What you doing? And I had all these like new things that I knew that I wanted to share,
Mhm.
but I needed to like see what they were into. So I remember sitting in the car with one of them and I was like, so what do you like? I'm like, what do you enjoy?
Mhm.
And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, like, what are you into? Like, what makes you feel good?
Yeah.
None. Was his answer. And I was like, okay, anything else? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like still with him, it's like I like sensuality play. I like the touch play.
Mhm.
I think it's called like pressure play. I like this, that.
Mhm.
Like those are the conversations I was starting to have with people regularly.
Mhm.
So people could tell me like, yeah, I want you to talk to me this way, touch me this way, over here. Like those were the conversations I was having.
Mhm.
And coming home, talking to the people I was having sex with before I left, and it was like they were like, huh, what? What are you talking about?
Wow.
What do you
Mm.
mean? What do I
What do you mean by that?
and I was just like, wow, like I didn't realize just how men are so disconnected from
Yeah.
that. Like they don't explore that as often, and I don't think they get the space to even. So
Mhm.
that's what I got.
Toxic masculinity doesn't allow a lot of space for that for men, and that is it's you're just setting things up perfectly for next guest, for the male guest. You really are. Like I love it because no, it really is true. Like just to touch on it briefly, like I've had conversations, in depth conversations with other men, and like the friend I was talking to earlier that grew up in the same space, and he also says like it really took me being out of that space to embrace like what I liked. I think having conversations, especially with people that do grow up in that culture, and when we get out of it, learning so much about yourself, it is it is a shared experience, but obviously it's different for everybody else, and it's very freeing to meet people and talk to people like, I was there, I did this, but now I'm here. Like people, I don't know, like if you were in a church kicking out a PK, you didn't grow up in that environment, it's really hard to put into words how freeing
It's
it is.
so, and
It
it
is.
makes me so happy. There are young women. I can't believe I'm an adult now. There are young women who like
You can do it though.
like, and like I'm 28, and so like they were young girls. I saw them as like little girls when I was younger, but now they're
Mhm.
also like grown too. And like they be like loving down when I'm actually talking about these things, or when I'm talking about like the freedom of being away from it. And they'll hark the story and they'll reply like, yeah, I mean, like seeing them also come into like adulthood and accept that freedom, and like it's a different kind of like relatability of like, I know it took you a while to also get out those trenches. And so, like, I'm so happy that we're here together and that we can talk about these things.
Mhm.
It's
And it
different.
does. It also leaves a sense of like I remember like when I'll have conversations like my mom like she still goes to the church and like she'll tell me about like oh so and so said hi and like these girls are young, they got married, they found partners. There wasn't the same time period I had to learn myself before that. And I recently my mom told me about a friend I was really close with. She looked at me like a big sister, and she's been homesick. Her husband's in the military. She was like I'm not home, like so many things, like, and I can know that she's younger than me as well, so I know she is like having all these feelings, and like it kind of also, you do kind of feel a sense of like, oh, like I want you to get there too. But also, it's different because it's almost like I don't even know how I would approach that conversation. Like, because you also don't want to, if somebody's not ready to have those conversations, being honest with themselves, they will take it as like, what are you trying to tell me? Like, is this, you know what I mean? And it's a tough space, but I really kind of felt like, oh my goodness, it's scary when I see like so many people that I went to school with that are younger than me are married.
Yes. Can we talk about it? Like, coming home from grad school, I'm a doctor, and everyone else is a missus. And that's,
Yeah. I was like, what do you like people that are literally 21, 22, 20?
like younger than me, married with baby 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, I'm really grateful that like I had that taste to like go away and, like you said, get to know myself, and like coming home and seeing that that is still the culture of young girls immediately prioritizing marriage and kids over self. And it's not like
Mm-hmm.
you can't do those things and know yourself, but it's like you when you do it so young, you don't have nearly as much space to like
Yeah.
understand yourself as one. You are automatically one of two.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a different kind of dynamic and a way to understand yourself versus by yourself. And yeah, like I don't know how to approach those conversations to this day. So I've taken the route of just like, that's why I share so much, honestly. It's really why I share as much as I do.
Yes.
I'm as transparent. Like, I've taken the one thing I wrote when I like wrote out my channel um setup or whatever, was like less advice, more showing. Like, instead of like making videos telling people what they should or shouldn't do, I'm gonna just show you how I've chosen to live, and
Mm-hmm.
know that it's something that's available to you should you ever have the freedom to do so.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to like be on my like preachy, you're too, like, I don't want to do that. Like, I just want you to see that, like, hey, like, this is what I've been doing. And I'm gonna talk about why and how I chose these things. And like, maybe if that
Mm-hmm.
resonates with you, you can see that you might want to do something similar or something, tangential, like whatever. But like, I don't know how to have the legitimate conversation without seeming condescending or
Yeah.
like I know it all or something. So instead, I just like I show the example, and then some people will reply and be like, oh, I love the way you're able to do this, and then I can like have a more like level ground conversation about it. But like, otherwise, I don't know how to approach it either.
Yeah, like, and one of the reasons why, once again, it's going back to why I feel like you're perfect for this conversation is that, like, aside from, like, just how open and transparent you are, but, like, those are really the qualities that it takes to have dialogue like this. There has to be vulnerability, you have to be open, you have to be transparent. Like, the whole point of us having this conversation is to kind of close that gap of how closed off things can be. Even now, when we live in a culture where it seems like everyone's like, oh, free the nipple, love your body, it's still some sense of shame there. There's still a fear of perception there because, like we mentioned earlier with desirability politics, if you don't look a certain way, if you're not shaped a certain way, those
Mm-hmm.
messages are not going to reach you. You know what I'm saying? And so it does require you to be open and be vulnerable and to be able to listen, So that's why I really, like I said, I felt like there was nobody more equipped, to really have this conversation with. Like, Quinn has been such a major component for me in learning to embrace my own body, just seeing how open she was, and like just how happy you were, how genuinely joyful you were, and just being 1,000% yourself, like that authenticity like just translates so well on screen and in person as well. There are other like I have another friend as well. Like it kind of started the way as well. People seeing me on the internet and truly developing friendships with you guys. And I always say, I've always wanted my channel to be a place like where it's really community based. Community is really important to me. I know you are probably sick of hearing me saying that, but in times like these, it is really important to build community and have meaningful conversations like this. And so yeah, I whenever people message me, you guys follow me, and like I'm able to really have conversations with y'all. Like it can turn into this. Like don't be
Mhm.
scared to leave a comment, okay? Like like really, it's yeah, like it's
It
a beautiful
really
thing, and
means
I.
so much to me. Like you
Hmm?
were like the DMs, like being willing to like have conversations. It means a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I never wanted to get to the point, and in general, like maybe people sense this about me already, but like I don't have a desire to be like famous or to be like a celebrity. I don't want there to ever be this wall where people feel like they can't approach me.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I don't like that. Like, and it made me also think about like in general how like Huey P. Newton was the same way. Like when he sort of became like the celebrity and it was ostracizing him from his community, he was like, I don't like this. People need to be able
yeah,
to come talk. I'm trying to reach them. How are they going to reach me? They feel like they can't talk to me, you know? So
yeah.
long story short, like I'm so grateful that I got to have this conversation with you. And as we wrap up, is there like anything else you wanted to add on? Something else you want to tell the girls? Any like, well, I guess advice or like tips on how to really get to the point where they really start to embrace themselves.
I want to say like low key lean into the vanity of it all, the aesthetics of it all, the romanticizing of it all. I love how people have turned like alone time into self dates. Like I love that. Like I love that. I love that so much. Like that reframing of the way you see yourself and enjoy your own company is it's groundbreaking for the way you approach relationships. Or at least it was for me. Um, I also have started to see maintenance as self dates. So like getting my nails
Mhm.
done. I'm broke right now, so it's on my hands. Like getting my
Yes.
my nails done. I do this thing where I wear lingerie around the house as my regular wear. Like I would
That's another
stop.
thing I started to do. I started getting actual lingerie sets because I was like, oh, that's so cute. I want
Yeah, you know what I'm
one of them.
saying? Like I stopped seeing like certain things as for special occasions only and embrace every day as a special occasion. The fact that I am alive
Mhm.
right now, I haven't experienced this day before. I've never
Yeah.
had this conversation before. What about
Mhm.
today is not special? You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
like when I changed my life to think about it that way, like I can wear my lingerie every night because this night is
Period.
special like last night was. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
it's like getting seeing myself as a sexy person on my
Mhm.
own was important instead of seeing myself as sexy for someone else. Like wearing my lingerie for me around the house, it was very life changing. Like doing my hair for myself, like that the time we spend on ourselves and our maintenance is a little bit pouring into ourselves. Like we're, gender affirming practices or, self love practices. Like those do a lot for me. So I recommend them to anyone that enjoys that kind of stuff. If that's something that you like dolling yourself up, like do it whenever you
Mhm.
can and spend a lot of time with yourself to enjoy your own company. Just like I will go on a different route for my walk. Like that's me
Mhm.
spending time for myself. I'm exploring a new place with myself. Like I have a lot of music I ain't never heard, so I listen to a new album just like on my own to see like just creating new experiences with me to enjoy my own company, so that I'm not using other people as an escape, and so that way when
Mhm.
I have a pleasure for myself, then I can share it instead of someone else creating it for me. I feel like a lot of the purity culture is telling us what we should be feeling and creating these experiences for us, like a script we should follow, but by
Yeah.
us like spending time on our own and creating it for ourselves, we know what we like and then we can share it. And that's a more connected experience than like this masking, perception based way of viewing pleasure.
Mhm. I love that. I couldn't think of a better way to end things off. That's why I said, Quinn, you tell the girls what they should do because I know you gonna knock it out the park. Thank you once again so much for joining me, and this will not be the last time you see Quinn. I promise you that. And maybe the
Well,
next time, this will probably be in person because that's something we've
I'm
also
getting
thought.
money now. I start in a few weeks, girl. I'm gonna be flying. I'm coming to see you or whatever. Hashtag.
Yeah.
So
Okay, I might get flued out, y'all. Hold on. Hold
listen, I'm
on.
gonna do it. I'll be tricking or something. For my friends too. Okay.
Period. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I had such a fun time doing this. Please be sure to subscribe to Quin's channel. Also, you also have the planners as well, I know, for
I
people.
did, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
I
so
have.
let people know where they can follow you, what things you got going on, so they can get all that.
Okay. I have a YouTube channel, Live with Quin, where I post weekly lifestyle vlogs about staying authentic while I'm elevating. I recently graduated with my PhD. I do mathematical biology. I'm a mathematician, so I care a lot about productivity and systems. So I've created planner systems for people. Some are free, some cost money, whichever one you want to do. It's all about figuring out like how you can make daily choices to create better outcomes in your life and the power that we have as people to shape our lives through our choices. That's like my whole thing. So I have planners called the Better Choices Planner that you could download. I also have a We're Productive People Club. It is a community space of ambitious people. We meet every Sunday to do yoga, to reset, talk through our week, and plan for the next week. And then we also have co-working twice a week so we can stay accountable to our goals, editing, writing, work, whatever. Just about creating spaces for people to connect authentically and create systems that work for them instead of following the systems that have left them where they are. So if you're about trying to better your life through your own autonomy and you want to be an authentic person, then I would definitely come join us. And I want to thank Semiyah for having me on her channel today.
Oh my goodness, I love you. I love you so much. I feel like I've said that so many times, but I really do. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe. Please sure to turn that bell on so you're notified every single time that I post. You can hit that like button if you want to. I would appreciate it. And I hope you guys enjoyed this first installment of With the Fam, and there'll be more episodes like this. You guys already know. Follow, do all the things. I really don't have a new outro for y'all. I'll be honest. I really don't. But you know what to do. Follow me on the things. You can go on my website where there's probably a new blog post or something up on there for you. I love you guys, and I will see you next time with another video.
Go ahead and tell them what you want to, but you know the truth just like I do. Not to hurt like it owns you. You wanna make me the